resources. So you don't. We haven't scheduled that in, but I'm sure they wouldn't be. They wouldn't have a problem with, catching you up if you feel like you fell behind or you didn't get a sense of the community.
Okay. Great.
That's another thing to know, Mia, we usually say it at the end, but we'll just try to. I'm going to be patient with Jose because I'd love it if he could make it. Is after this hangout, we do invite you to the. I don't think you're in the facilitators community right now, and we'll invite you. And the purpose of inviting you is just so you can ask like really quick on-demand questions. You in no way have to follow that chatter or what's going on there, so you get to ignore it. Except you feel like you have a facilitation need. And so that's an example of something you could post there is like, my day's so busy, I'm not going to be able to look at the Google Plus community before the Make With Me. It would be great if someone could give me 5 links of something powerful to share.
Okay.
Because we're all happy to do that work, and we can crowdsource that stuff pretty quickly. So you'll have that as a support outreach after this meeting. So if anything starts to make you nervous, you post there. And again, ignore it unless.
Okay, that makes total sense. I'm not so worried about the Make With Me because that Tuesday is okay. It's when Wednesday and Thursday hit, when the visitors come and when we have this activity that you're the visitor. I'm really, by the way, Chris, as an aside, because we're waiting for Jose, I want to say that we have a very special restaurant on campus that was written up in the New York Times, and it's like a farm to table, nice place, and we're going there for dinner. I got the president to give us a tab. So after all of our paper circuitry business and everything, we're going to. It's called Ursino, like Ursino. So if you're in the mood, you can Google it and check it out and choose what savories you're interested in. It's all about the microgreens.
I was going to say, I really don't want you to, do anything special for me coming. I'm just tagging along with Minu. But
no, I'm really looking forward to it. It's going to be fun. It's going to be yummy and fun. Anyway, thanks, Joe, for letting me know about that facilitators board, just because I think it'll be okay, but it's great to know that there's an insta-help place just to reach out if it's a timing issue or something.
Yep. Yeah, absolutely. So I think now's a good time to go ahead and get started, and Jose has posted a couple already, and so if he pops in, what we'll do is we'll just welcome him, and we'll give him a chance to look over your form, and we'll just pause. Other than that, it's Mallory and I responding, and Christina gets to respond if she wants to. And other than that, she's a protocol cop, and she is definitely going to be more strict than me, so because I was with the protocol. But I'll walk through the protocol really quickly. So if you have that up, it might be worth looking at.
Yeah, I didn't click on that one, so I'll do that right now and just look. So I'm looking at that document and not at your face right now, and that's fine. Yeah. Okay, so you can proceed, and I will follow based on this.
Okay, here's the basics. I'm going to whip through it really quickly, and then I'm going to tell the stories here. So intro of participants, we all know each other here. One big happy clan.
I don't know Mallory, so maybe it's and I'm glad I do now. But maybe just a little sort of context would help me.
Perfect. Yeah, Mallory, would you introduce yourself?
Hi, Mia. Yes, I'm Mallory. I am in Philadelphia. I'm working in the office with Christina. I'm doing a lot. I taught high school English before. I'll be teaching middle school English in the fall. And I just finished my master's degree. So
cool. Did I meet you that one time when you were in the office with Chris and I was like,
yes, I was like, hi, bye. Yeah.
Okay. Now I know who you are.
But I'm facilitating a behind-the-scenes stuff, so I'll see you when you do the Make With Me. We'll get all of the videos set up and links shared with you and things like that, and I'll be in the Twitter chats and all that kind of stuff. So
great. Well, nice to meet you again, and thank you.
Yep. Awesome. So that's the intro of participants, and then I'm going to jump us into the protocol with a few stories, which I'll tell in just a moment. And then here's the rationale of the actual protocol part. The idea here is that maybe I'm getting this wrong. I should tell the stories first. So I'm just going to get into the stories real quick. So the Terry and Kevin story is about last year's successful week 1, right? And Terry and Kevin really thought that podcasting was going to be central to introductions last year. And they were really prepared to support everybody with podcasting. And they come up with all kinds of tools, and they thought about, how to do Google Hangouts to help people with podcasts. And then they said that only one person made a podcast. And instead, what participants were doing were picking up on some of the other ideas that they thought were just kind of minor ideas in terms of like the avatars they could create and then the memes that showed up. And so at the end of the week, everybody was feeling really positive about the activity in the community, but they also, as facilitators, they reflected, they said, boy, that didn't end up being anything that we expected. And so the point of telling this story is to let you know that, unlike in a classroom where you can kind of get raised hands and see who's confused or know who's maybe taking something in a different direction than you thought, this is the kind of thing where if people start to take this in a different direction, we kind of go with it, as you can probably guess.
Yeah.
And that when they do, you'll also see like that support team saying, this is great. And so it's just to kind of prepare you. That story is just to say that like we can envision successful weeks where this community continues to do whatever the heck they're going to do. And they might not get jazzed about any of the ideas we present in any of the weeks. So it's just to say that that's not a success or failure thing. It's just that we're going to, just to prepare you.
Yeah, thank you for that anecdote. It makes absolute sense to me.
Yep. Then the second one is, I think that at the end of our preparations for every week last year, we were always like, there's always like a seed of doubt, like, will this work? And then we, and sometimes we wouldn't all agree if something was a great idea. And so, but the expression we came up with was, you can't really break the MOOC. And then we'd also say, oh, but we will this week. And so the idea might not pan out is fine. And if we're ever nervous or feeling like something's going to be, come across imperfectly, that's perfectly okay. And frankly, if the MOOC starts to register like frustration or anything, that's interesting to us. So the idea is that there's no pressure, and if you did break the MOOC, that would be really interesting.
Okay, sounds good. I do feel like I could use when we get into content issues. Like I feel like my idea is very broad and needs some sort of focusing or hemming. Maybe that's not the right approach, but I definitely anticipate there are going to be interpretations that are off what anything I have in my own head, and so I'm good with that. Like, meaning I understand that you can't break the MOOC, and that people will be doing things that you can't anticipate. That I get it, and I'm happy about that.
Awesome. Okay, and then this is what I was about to jump into before, which is the rationale for this coaching session. And so it's a design thinking approach in the sense that you'll be pushing your idea out to a large community, and what we're going to try to do is just do a little bit of role play where Mallory and I first pretend like we're participants, and then we pretend like we're facilitators. And the idea is that even though you're not going to be able to, we won't, for example, be able to give you 40 minutes to explain your plan. And so we're going to ask you to really condense your plan, and we won't be crystal clear about everything you might express in a newsletter, for example, but we're still going to try to give you feedback. So we're going to kind of stop you short of fully forming your ideas for us, and then just start to say what we think. And the idea being that we're trying to generate a lot of possible feedback and possible responses for you. And so the idea there is you're going to walk away hopefully with notes about facilitation ideas and notes about what participants might think. But it's also an admission that might feel a little weird or forced. And that because we have a week and a half, if you ever feel like you need to talk about the plan or you want to slow down, it's okay. And if you want to push pause on this protocol, you can, because as you can probably guess, Christine is not that tough of a cop.
Got it.
Does that make sense?
It does make sense. So I think that probably I'm just going to, I'm going to hem it in when we start to do dialogue or whatever, because the problem is that I could probably go on talking theoretically, and
I'm happy to start us off, Mia, and like when we get to 2 minutes, just raise my hands like this, right? So
Okay.
because we're going to talk for 5. Is that okay, Joe?
Yeah, perfect.
Great.
Okay.
So I think I'm going to take over the protocol at this point, right? So Joe can be a listener and a responder?
Yep. Awesome.
No? Okay. Awesome. So, Mia, I guess the first question is, what might participants do? And Joe and Mallory are going to listen as participants and then talk back to you as participants. So if you want to share with us what participants might do for 5 minutes, that'd be great.
Okay, so am I talking right now about the making or about, like, just ideas in general, like behind the making? Like what they might make? Is that what we're talking about?
Yeah. Yeah. So,
Okay.
What might you put out there and suggest that participants? What might participants do, and what might you suggest they do?
Okay. So my call is calling all hackers, and I want to sort of embrace this notion of what it means to hack. And I have a few entry points. I'm thinking about playful exploration, exploiting the weakness in something, remixing, taking something old and making it anew. What might participants do? They might revisit something they've written before or made before and sort of make it come alive in a new context with new tools.
Oh, that was excellently condensed.
Okay, am I supposed to be? Because I could go on about that, but I will.
Well, you have another 4 minutes, so if you want to.
Oh, okay. Sorry. So yeah. Okay. So I'm really thinking about the idea of writing is making. And I want to be able to have people, I want to invite people to tinker with their own writing processes and then make new text out of old. And Chris, this kind of connects with what we were saying before about at the end of our last Google chat about sometimes you think you're plagiarizing yourself and you don't think about, the possibilities of your own work and revisiting them and inserting new little tweaks, etc., or thinking about a new context or a new community to share that with. So a lot of what I'm trying to set up here has to do with that idea. Revisiting something old and making it new. It might be something that people made that's writing specific, like an old poem that they're going to light up in new ways, or it could be something that they've never seen value in, that's like just a piece of junk in their house, like a laundry list or something, and then getting creative with how to make that a new, writing expression through some kind of creative play that has to do with digital tools and digitization. One last comment. I think that one of the things I'm super interested in, and this is where the theoretical versus the practical I'm worried about, is I'm really interested in, and I'm going to look at my own document to try to capture this, because I wrote it down in a specific way. But I'm really interested in the conversation. I don't need to look at the document. I'm interested in the conversation between the analog and the digital, and how the convergence of these two forms of writing sort of changes writing processes. So one of the things I can imagine is that people might make in the physical computation sense, like let's get out our makey-makeys, if there's someone out there in the community who has a tool like that. So sort of makerspace ethos I'm hoping will sort of pop up in this week, although it might not. But I just imagine that might happen where people are thinking about composition and composing their writing, and also thinking about the ways in which you can make anew through computational processes. So like using the makey-makey or something like that could happen within this week based on this invitation to remix and hack.
Excellent.
Is there any more time left?
Should I? You don't need to. You don't need to fill the time. I mean, if you feel like you let me know if you think you.
Yeah,
I mean, could have Joe and Mallory respond to you now.
Okay, that sounds good.
Okay.
Mia, one of the things that I was looking at your document earlier, and one of the things I think you mentioned something about for someone who may not have that much time, who has like 4 kids, they might do something around the house, and it made me think of found poetry a little bit, and the idea of like pulling, like if I like find like a grocery list in my house and like a note that was left somewhere, and like pulling these different things that are written around my house and like creating some sort of found poem. I was thinking that would be such a cool thing to make, that would be remixing old things to new things. So I don't know, that was kind of something that inspired me. And I would definitely want to know more, I think, about kind of the role of hacking with the writing as well. And just because something I also thought about was like those life hacks, you know, they have those little like, you know, I was like looking them up online, for example, and one of the life hacks is, if you type any flight number in Google, it'll tell you where the flight is. Like, so, but there's that kind of idea of where does that fit into is that a different kind of hacking? Does that still fit into the writing? So I guess that'd be an idea that I'm not sure about, but would want to explore. And I think the idea, too, what you brought up about analog versus digital is really interesting to me as well, because if I, you know, in bringing writing to the classroom and in hacking writing with the classroom, where does that fit if I'm teaching writing to students? So those are some of my thoughts.
Those are awesome thoughts. They're making me effervesce internally. Do I respond now, or do I listen to Joe?
No, we'll just listen to Joe,
okay.
And just like hear all of it.
Okay, sounds good.
Before responding.
So with me, I was definitely interested. I liked in your document where you gave a kind of a concrete definition of hack, and I think that makes it accessible to me. And so I would like to be able to read more, so I felt like I was using the term right, and that if I would want to be able to judge for myself if I was kind of approximating hacking or remixing. As far as like concrete things, because I do like to be able to. I like to be able to have some concrete things I can do if I'm going to be budgeting my time for the MOOC. I think about a couple ideas came up. The idea that I could return to some of my analog writing and try to put it in a new medium. The first things that came to mind were just, you know, taking something and turning it into something in Scratch, or taking an essay that I wrote years back that I really liked, only half of it. And one time I only read half of it to a group, and it really had a good effect. So I might turn that into a podcast, kind of NPR style, where they kind of like have some cool audio transitions. But I might revisit that, and I really like the notion of plagiarize yourself. And I think about that being something like you could be playful with that, like quote yourself, or you know, there's there's a principal in my district who kind of people joke because he has a quote. He has a quote of himself on his wall in his office, which is a little silly, but it's just I like that idea. The idea that I had something good to say there, and you know, restating it. It's like hack your writing is also appreciate your writing. Yeah. And then I also might think about picking up on what Mallory was saying. I might want to feel invited to hack other people's writing, or I might, you know, if somebody was going to, you know, do a quick write in a notebook with their pen and they took a picture of it, I'd like the invitation to take that and do what I want with it. Or those might be informal ways we can, you know, we can hack writing. And then I also was thinking about, you know, the notion of hack. It means making things easier, and sometimes when parenting, I try to capture like cool conversations with my daughter, or conversations with my daughters that I think are funny. And one way to hack that would be just to voice record a few, so I don't have to sit in front of the screen and labor over if the dialogue sounds right. I could just voice record them and transcribe them, and that might be hacking writing. And then if I'm remixing that, then maybe I'm putting in pictures of her or whatever, right? I can mix video over it. I could use that as soundtrack under a video of, you know, she and I playing together, and then the dialogue is about something else. So I think those are some of the concrete things I walked away with. And then new tools. I guess new tools makes me think about WebMaker, and what might there be on WebMaker that would, you know, taking something and converting it from analog to HTML seems pretty concrete in terms of analog to digital. It seems like a pretty interesting transposition.
Wow, you guys are so good. You're responding to what I had in mind in such fertile ways. So I actually am gaining confidence from this.
That's great. And I don't really have anything to add. I thought that was very fertile. So you now have a chance, Mia. Oh, look, Michael's joining us. Hi, Michael.
Hi, how are you?
Good. How are you?
I'm okay. Sorry, I got home late.
That's okay. So, Michael, we're just now, I'm doing the protocol. I'm leading the protocol this week so that Joe can be in a response mode.
Okay.
And we just got to the point where Joe and Mallory gave some feedback to Mia, and now Mia's going to respond to that feedback for 5 minutes. So maybe you could listen to her response, and then we could bring you into the next cycle, okay?
Got it.
Great. Okay. All right.
Okay, so some of the things. Hi, Michael.
Hi.
So some of the things that really impressed me in listening to what you guys said. First of all, I think it's really important that we expand the notion of hacking beyond, even though I wanted to start from a place of revisit what you've done before and think about it anew, and we're implying the notion that there's no such thing as plagiarizing oneself and moving the work to new places and that kind of thing. I also really like what Joe said about making sure that the hacking invitation is open to looking at other texts and playing with them and making them anew. So I think it's a really important thing to try to articulate in the newsletter and open up, especially in the context of the facilitation. If there seems to be a hesitation or some sense of a constraint in that regard, I want to eliminate that. So just as an example, I was thinking, recently I was thinking of a hypertext poem and how I wanted to layer certain ideas and interpretations of my own through multimodal expression onto a Emily Dickinson poem. So I would consider that a hack your writing entry point of taking something like an Emily Dickinson poem and hypertexting it in ways that are multimodal and layered, etc., but bound to my own interpretation of the meaning of that poem. So that was the first thing that came to my mind. Let's not constrain this by making it too directed towards one's own previous work, although that's a really fruitful origination. It doesn't have to be the only one. And then the second thing with Mallory, I really loved that sort of connect with life hack, and in all honesty I have to look into that more, but I'm really glad you gave me that sort of sense of what people's interpretations might be and association with that word. And I like the kind of extension of writing to life and identity, and I'm sure that that life hack stuff out there is about that, like hack your life and change the things, or make anew something in your own practice of being a person. I'm assuming that's part of what the backdrop of that is, and I would be very excited to see that manifest in this conversation over the week. Is how does writing change who we are, and what role does it play in our understanding of ourselves? So I loved that. I'm not sure how I'm going to be able to communicate all of that, and maybe I can't in the newsletter, but at the same time the opening for these possibilities excites me tremendously. So there were some other thoughts I had as you guys were talking, but for now I think those are the things that rose to the surface for me.
Oh, that's exciting. Great. So now everybody's going to go into the role of playing as a facilitator, but I just wanted to take a moment and see if Michael and Mia had ever met each other, because I'm not sure you have.
No.
Right? Okay. So maybe, Michael, you could start by introducing yourself, and then Mia could do a quick introduction too.
Sure. I'm Michael. I'm at Cal State LA with the LA Writing Project, and I teach high school in the San Gabriel Valley, just east of downtown LA, at a school called Mountain View. And I'm one of the coaching team for clmooc.
Cool. It's nice to meet you, Michael.
You too.
I'm Mia, and I'm the director of the Kane University Writing Project, which is in New Jersey, and I'm also an English professor.
I've seen you on Twitter.
Yeah, so I've grown my network through Twitter, and it's a wonderful, enriched part of my life. So I'm happy about that.
Nice to meet you.
Great. So so everybody's gonna Mia's gonna talk for 5 minutes about some of the key points of facilitating or leading this make cycle, like what you're thinking about already, Mia. What are some of the key things you want to bring to it as a facilitator? You know, maybe some of your key questions, but also your key ideas. Because as Joe likes to say when he's doing this protocol, if a bunch of people got hit by a bus, I'm hoping, you know, like, could the rest of us pick up the cycle, right? So, like, sort of try to talk it out, you know, as if, like, we're really going to take it on ourselves as a facilitation, and talk through your key points of leading this week. And we'll listen for 5 minutes, and then everybody will have 10 minutes to respond.
Okay, great. One of the first things I think I need to do between now and the time the newsletter comes out is I need to cull together some varying examples of the kinds of things that might look like a hack of writing. So any support in that regard would be really wonderful, just because, and I love the ideas you guys threw out earlier. We could try to, like, curate a little of that so to dump into the newsletter effectively. But in short, I want to have you know, sort of more short. I loved in the form how there was the person with four kids, and, you know, versus like the dissertator, because I can totally relate to those two access points. And the interesting thing is I'm definitely the person with the 4 kids. It's 2, but still, despite the fact that my mind is the dissertator mind. So anyway, I just need a little, I think I need help with identifying examples that would be kind of great launching places for all the directions it might go in. Secondly, one of the challenges I see about facilitating this week, this Make Cycle week, is what I had alluded to earlier, in that we're doing things physically with our local community that week that will be very meaningful to us and complement the kind of conversation that will be happening in the global network. And I want to be able to inflect and bring that out in effective ways. So in short, Minu, Rami, and Chris are coming to Kane University Writing Project on Wednesday, and in that afternoon, we're going to do a paper circuitry workshop with our TCs. It'll be approximately 15 people, just for the first time getting their hands dirty, making with the paper circuitry, and I'd like to incorporate in that some protocol for reflection on the process, and of course seeing it through the lens of the broader clmooc community. How do I get what we did in that afternoon onto, you know, how do I transport what happened there to the conversation in the MOOC in a way that's helpful, productive, interesting, a reference point, etc. So I haven't quite figured that out yet. The second day of that visit, so there's the paper circuitry workshop, which is Wednesday of the week, and then the second day is a day in which Minu will be working with our TCs, talking about her book Thrive, and how to develop a professional learning network that's enriching to your practice. But she's also going to be speaking about the way she's had such great success building zines in her with her students. So, like, e-zine, and I thought that idea of collaborating with a group and getting out an ebook is perfect for the notion of writing process, and we could inflect this hacking business somehow and all of that. But again, how do I get those conversations and the things that are happening at the Kane University Writing Project on that day that are so productive somehow represented in the MOOC in a way that makes sense? So I'm wrapping up here now, but one of the things that I'm thinking about, of course, is like webinar-y stuff, you know, like getting it out through conversations of webinar style. But we have the Make With Me thing on Tuesday, and we don't want to, you know, overdo it either. So that's where I leave the sense of my own challenges in terms of facilitation.
Great. Thank you, Mia. And I'm trying to copy and paste these questions in here. I'm on a brand new computer, and it's challenging me. But, okay. So now, Michael, Joe, and Mallory, we'd like to talk back to Mia about what you would emphasize if you ended up facilitating this week, and some of the questions you'd want to be explicit about and the things you'd keep in mind.
I have a quick question. Do you do ethnography at all in your summer institute?
No, I have a colleague who's really into that, but I don't think they're doing that this year. To be honest with you, I have a director of the Summer Institute as well, a colleague, Kim Kiefer, who sort of does the every day with the group. So I'm sort of, I mean, although they know me because we have meetings and we have lunches together and that kind of thing, as the director of the project, I'm a little bit more distant with the group so Kim Kiefer, my colleague, is a sort of on-ground facilitator of the ISI.
Got it. The reason I brought it up is we do it every day in our writing project. I put in the chat box a hack pad that I made for the day that it was my turn to do the ethnography. I thought maybe ethnography might be a way to capture the things that are happening on that day, and be a way that you could share it with the rest of the clmooc. If you had, well, we have a different person each day do it, and the more experienced members of the project start it off, and then we give examples, and then we turn it over to the new fellows, and they start doing their ethnographies, and we share it about 10 minutes each day after lunch. So that might be that's just a thought I had while you were talking about that.
Fantastic. So it's a generation of a text that can be shared, like meaning the responses are something that we could capture in a textual form and then send out. Awesome.
So you can see mine. I linked to it. It could be as simple as a list of all the things that the ethnographer saw on a piece of paper that she hands out. Or today, one of our fellows used iMovie to make a little YouTube clip with pictures and quotes from the day. I used pictures and screenshots and text and links on my hackpad. So there's different. We try to model different ways of doing it, but it's one person is just in charge of writing down everything that happens, and we encourage that person to take pictures and use video if they feel comfortable with that.
I love that model. Yeah.
Let's hear all the sort of ideas, and then we could go back to actually talking about this one if we want to dig into it a little bit more. Just want to make sure we get everything out, but that's great, Michael. Michael, do you have more that you'd like to add, or do you want to?
Sure. I might be explicit about what my colleague Shahid calls the so what factor. When I see all these things going on, I think they're really neat. But with the memes, for example, what caught my attention with the memes was the idea that memes could be a way of disseminating an important message. So I'm starting, as I'm kind of playing with memes, I'm not really sharing that much because I'm still trying to really get my head around how they work. I can consume them, but I'm not a very good producer of memes yet. But I'm thinking about what are the things I want my kids to really remember about my classroom? Like, when can they come for extra help? Like my office hours, if you will. And can I create memes that will get kids to think, oh, I could go for extra help with Mr. Weller if I'm, if I got an F on this paper. So that helped me make a connection between my classroom practice and this thing that's happening out there that's cool, but how do I bring it home? So
Right.
the same thing with hacking. I like that you mentioned the activist nature of it in your spreadsheet, and I wonder if there are ways that you could bring that out. And I think maybe the examples that you're talking about, bringing out lots of examples, can help people see those connections. I would just try to be explicit about ways that it can be contextualized or examples of contextualization of these ideas.
Excellent.
Mallory or Joe, you want to go?
You, Mallory, or me?
Go ahead, Joe. I need a little bit more time to think.
Okay, I was thinking that I might be explicit about interest-driven. I guess I was looking at the connected learning principles and thinking that for something that is potentially broad, hack your writing. I think about what are you most interested in? What most interests you about hacking, maybe, or how does hacking relate to your life? Or I might pose reflective questions like, as you're remixing someone's writing or taking something from one modality to change it to another, what's most interesting about it? Because I think that might support folks with entry points, and it would also be, it sort of it might help take hacking from, a term we use that's potentially in vogue to something that starts to become more personal for us.
Yeah.
Maybe that's fuzzy. So here's some concrete. When I think about ways I could hack my writing if I'm busy with the kids, I think about window crayons, which I have, and where might I take, a powerful line I've written or something I like from Minu's book or something, and I could maybe write it across the back windshield of my car like seniors do when they're going to graduate or something. Or I could do some writing that I like and write it with sidewalk chalk somewhere kind of pretty, and then sort of train a video camera on it, like if it's going to rain or something. Kind of Andy Goldsworthy hacking your writing. And with that in mind, thinking about those, Minu's visit in particular, I wonder about, is there a way to, take maybe a lead to a chapter or something from her intro, a particularly powerful paragraph, and maybe you and she could remix it, or you and Erica could remix it in a Google Hangout or something, and that sort of invites people into the text and also challenges that authoritative system. Like, as we're reading this book, we're going to take paragraphs and remix them, or hack them.
That's great.
Oh, Joe froze. Joe, can you hear us?
Talked about it for the last 2 years, and it hasn't really manifested so much. But what about 8 to 12 minute hangouts? And so when you have those response,
you froze for a second.
I froze.
Yeah. So you came in when you said we've been talking about it for a little while, for a couple of years, but maybe these 8 to 10 minute hangouts. So
okay,
just the beginning part.
Yep. So 8 to 10 minute hangouts. When you talked about webinar-y stuff, I wonder whether especially maybe at the SI when you have the folks doing it, do you want to pair them off and make them go to opposite sides of whatever space you've got, and then they're going to have a little hangout where they share back and forth, and it's like 8 minutes tops, and we're going to post. And they could maybe mess around doing dramatic today we were messing around doing dramatic readings. I was just giving people video cameras and saying, would you like to do a dramatic reading? And I was mostly joking, but at the same time it's kind of like the idea that we're going to joke about how they're going to read it kind of loosen people up, and it's like, oh yeah, I can try to read what I've just hacked my writing. I'm going to try and read it in like a powerful way, even though I'm sort of unsure of my first draft. So, and the idea that your SI could very quickly produce like a lot of little videos that people would then watch and then could be exemplars. Or and certainly videos you can also remix, right? You could take people could take those YouTube clips and cut them down to the best 10 seconds or the best, minute.
Mm-hmm.
So I wonder about that. That might be all I have for now.
Great.
Mine's sort of just building off what Michael and Joe said, but and everyone's kind of mentioned the idea of giving explicit examples and things like that, and I would just add that I would just really want to be explicit with with the idea of what a hack is and what remixing looks like, especially because I feel like they're both things that I learned more about their conceptual role this year, but before that I kind of just assumed, I didn't really know what that meant, and and I think, and I was in a classroom teaching before that too, so how can we really upset people's definitions of that in a way that's, that would, and I think giving examples is important, but I just was thinking about that, like I didn't, I had a very narrow idea of what those terms meant until I dug more into them through literacy courses that I was taking, so I would just, I guess I don't really know what I'm trying to say here, but I guess just again being explicit with what can hacks look like, what forms do they take, what mixing, and I think that it's something that can be accessible to people. It's just a matter of having those examples in place, and I think all of the examples that people have brought up are really important. And I also do like what Michael was going on with about really bringing in the activities that you would be doing on site with the Hack Your Notebook. That's something that I would really want to share with the Google Plus community and Twitter and things like that, just to show people again that those concrete things of here's one way that we're remixing and hacking, and I like that that hackpad ethnography, or even and again the ideas of images, videos, things like that. I think that all of that would just make it very accessible.
Great, thank you.
I was thinking that I would just add a couple things, if that's okay. I know I want to honor our time. So in Digitaliz, there are several examples that I can point you to, Mia, about hacking. So including Amy Storniello from Penn doing hack books in her literacy classes, having hacking paper books, Chad writing about hacking, and I forget if we have one about hacking, like hacking games. So
yeah,
I think those could be helpful. And then I know that the folks there's a group in New York doing a sort of like hack remix Frankenstein in like a page by page way with theater and voice and all this stuff. And they're going to too. So I'll try to get them to do that before so you can use it. But I do think that some of those examples are pretty grounded and they're written by educators who so that might be helpful.
Yeah, those are all good resources for the newsletter, I think. Sounds like.
Okay, so now you have 5 minutes, Mia, to sort of talk about what you hear that impacts your thinking.
I think this has been really helpful. First of all, a simple pragmatic question. We're recording this, right? So I can watch this over and over again and write down what I need to write, right? Okay, good, because there's a lot there. I also really like Michael's suggestion about the contextualization and, so what? That is a really important question, and that I think on some level can be addressed through facilitation on some level. I just worry so much about the amount of time I have to be able to infuse that the network spaces with this thinking compared to when I'm physically with our Kane University writing project. But I hear the message in the beginning of our meeting, Joe, that you outlined, which is just simmer down, don't get anxious, and do your best, which I can say as a mantra to myself. But these are really strong, rooted tools, the hack pad idea, the ethnography idea, the 8-minute interviews that are recorded in some fashion, all these things. Even if we get just a little bit of that stuff, it could turn into a really interesting blog post eventually, even if it comes, after the fact, as a sort of synthesis from my perspective of the things that I noticed, etc. But yeah, I think what I have gotten here is the fact that you guys kind of got what I was after. I mean, you kind of picked up on it and then interpreted it in your own ways, and that was what I was hoping, because you said a lot of stuff that I didn't think of, like even the scratch thing, which some of you guys know that I've been tweaking with that stuff, and my kids play with that and everything. Didn't even think about, scratch as a kind of entry point for the hacking thing, but it will definitely go in the newsletter. Check this out, try this, So I've got a lot here, and thank you so much. I think it's very helpful.
Great. Excellent. And just to note that Scratch, like WebMaker, has a remix button. So. Yeah,
perfect. It's a tool basically that can be featured and explicitly connects with the whole week. Yeah. So excellent. Right now, it seems like WebMaker and Scratch are the two major tools that have risen to the surface. If you guys see any other tools, if you think of any other tools that you think really explicitly connect, that's another thing to drop down into the newsletter. Oh, one important question. What I'm unclear about is the reflections, and when that happens, the reflection thing that comes at the end, sort of at the bookend thing, how do people do that? And is there a kind of template, or should I just look at what, I think it was Chris and Rachel, and I could look at theirs and then sort of try to synthesize in a similar fashion and write it in my own style. Would that work, that approach?
Joe, back to you. Yeah.
What I would say is, pardon me, I'll make sure that you already have examples of all the newsletters that have gone out. Excuse me, frog in my throat. Newsletters that have gone out to initiate things, and by the time you write your reflection newsletter, you'll have seen 3. So right. I would just say don't even try to really write it until you've seen a few days in the MOOC.
Right.
And then we also have examples from last year. Do think about if you see I think it's more important to curate a few things, powerful things that pop up.
Okay.
Setting those aside, that's really useful for writing your reflection newsletter. If you have 3 really disparate models, and then you can kind of free write off those for a paragraph about why those were powerful, etc.
Right.
And, so what struck you about this week, etc. Kind of. I think that's the biggest support I try to give you is don't try to write it until you've seen what's happened in the community.
Yeah.
Except to have some connected learning principle questions maybe in mind, but that's kind of Twitter chat stuff too. So your Twitter chat questions can kind of inform the reflection newsletter. And then you'll have a model. The most important, I think, is we'll get you a model right now for the launch newsletter. So you can start moving that, but you have examples of that.
Okay, that makes total sense to me, and now I appreciate the 3 anchory disparate ways of coming at it as a way to think about synthetic thinking or whatever. That's helpful. So, but essentially, it's one of these organic thing that comes after the week. When time-wise, it goes out on Saturday morning, right? Is that when it usually goes out, or?
Yep. Let me double check that. I know I sent it to you, but I want to make sure I have it in front of me and in front of you.
Oh, I'll just look at the guidance. It's okay.
Oh no, I got it right here.
Okay.
Let's see. Yeah, that reflection newsletter goes out on. If you can have it to the staff Friday morning.
Okay, Friday. Okay, not Saturday. Okay.
Right, and then it will be pushed out to the community on Saturday.
Okay, got it.
So Mia, we'll try to work with you as flexibly as possible, of course, knowing that things are really busy. What helps is to get a sense of what you're working on, and then we can give you feedback as you go. So.
Okay. Great. So many things taken from this engagement. Thank you.
So Mia, I also heard you in the protocol process. The end is to ask what you will support between now and then. So this is one of the things, and then also just that you're interested in tools and you're interested in examples.
Exactly.
So it might be that. Well, Joe, I think that you started already talking about adding Mia to the facilitators group, right? And so that could be a place too where you could could post real quickly about like examples of hacking and remixing and that people like. And I'm sure that you'll be able to crowdsource a little mini list. Does that seem right, Joe?
Yeah. Yeah, that's exactly it. The idea that the Google Plus community is a place where you can start posting whenever, whatever, from now forward. So, and we'll just be really responsive. People are always watching it and responding, and typically folks don't have too big of questions. But the idea is that if whatever you need, we'll make sure we can support you.
And I put it on my to-do list to send you the DigitalIz examples too already. So.
Great. That'll be awesome.
And I don't know, Mia, are you seeing our chat?
I am. Yes. Okay. I haven't clicked on all the stuff because I just wanted to focus on this.
Yeah,
but that is something that I'll be able to click on when I look through the archive, right? Or will I be able to?
So I'm going to save it and send it.
Oh, okay. Good. Awesome.
It's one of those things that often gets left.
Oh my God! Let's not let that disappear because that's a wealth of. That's like a gold mine.
Here we go. Yeah. So I will put that in an email to you.
Can you CC Erica as well, so that she has access to that, and then we'll just be able to refer to this.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you very much, Jeff.
Yeah.
Ooh, kinetic type.
All right. What else, Christina?
Well, it looks like that's the end of the protocol. So I think we are done for the evening, and we're 2 minutes over, but excellent job, everybody. That was great. And thank you, Mia. I mean, I guess that's like just a really important thing to say. So thank you and your community for doing this. And then thank Joe for organizing all of us, and Mallory and Michael for being here. So it's great.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
So, well, I'll see you guys on all of our other spaces, but you know, I feel excited about things in the week after next. So, I think it'll be good.
Yay!
I'm excited too. Yay!
Yay! Okay, guys.
Okay.
So,
good job, everyone.